With only Endion left, I head there to obtain the Purifiers. During the cutscene, Rohanna says the Purifiers cannot be controlled, and Phoenix says they don't have to control them, as they have free will. Carax mentions that they don't have the previously unmentioned Purifier matrices needed to create more beings like Phoenix. Artanis decides to free the Purifiers, Rohanna reminds him they rebelled, and Phoenix says their rebellion was justified. Upon getting to Endion, Carax finds a massive Zerg infestation. Artanis somehow realizes these are Amon's Zerg. Vorazon mentions that Amon's forces are attacking planets near one of their colony worlds. This is strange, as it was never previously mentioned that any uncontrolled Protoss were anywhere other than this ship. Rohanna reminds Artanis that the Purifiers killed all the Templars in Latinium. Artanis responds by saying that they rose up against their masters. Rohanna counters that they're robots, not Templars. Artanis gets annoyed and asks if she considers Phoenix a robot. Rohanna admits that he is more than a robot, and Artanis says that the original Purifiers may be like Phoenix. Phoenix says he'll convince the Purifiers that they won't be treated as servants again. He's also happy to have a purpose. Carax explains that the next mission will involve using the megalith. Unsealing the past. Upon starting this mission, Carax gains access to Endion's logs and learns of the megalith, despite mentioning it on the Spear of Adun. You then gain control of Colossi and use them to create a base. Next, you have to wait for the megalith to come online and protect it until it reaches the stasis locks. After it undoes the stasis lock, you have to protect it until it unlocks the remaining 4 locks. For unknown reasons, Amon's Zerg haven't destroyed these locks and don't attack them during this mission. Also, there's 2 Solarite power cores. When all 5 locks have been destabilized, Cybros is free from stasis. Back on the Spear of Adun, Alarak asks if Artanis plans to bind the Purifiers to his will. Artanis replies that they will be allowed freedom, and mentions how he freed the Tal'Darim. Alarak counters that the Tal'Darim are controlled by him and aren't free. He also states that the Purifiers should be used as tools of destruction. Vorazon asks why the Protoss chose Endion to house the Purifiers, and Artanis explains it was a retreat for scholars away from the political affairs. Vorazon asks how many Protoss were on this planet, and Artanis says 800,000 Khala, and a smaller number of Templar. Purification. Despite the status grid only just falling, Amon's Zerg have infested parts of the ship, and there's hybrids on board. I'm not sure why the Spear of Adun didn't stop them flying into this ship. Carax explains that each quadrant has 3 null circuits that have to be destroyed to restore power to this quadrant. Yet the Zerg don't attack any of these things, and only attack the core matrix, which can cause the ship to fall out of orbit. Also, despite being inside a ship, the Spear of Adun can fire through it to assist you. Later, a rogue Purifier which contains Solarite appears, which foreshadows that only this Purifier will oppose you. Once the first quadrant is reactivated, Executor Kalorian contacts you. Artanis asks for forgiveness for how the Purifiers were treated and asks them to assist him. Though Kalorian is skeptical, he agrees to work with Artanis to purify the Zerg. Though during their battle with the Zerg, the Purifiers don't destroy additional null circuits, despite knowing what they are and how useful more Purifiers would be. Once all the seals are unlocked, Cybros returns to full power and the Purifiers purge the ship of Zerg. Then use their ship to eradicate all the Zerg on Endion, along with all other life forms. Back on the Spear of Adun, Artanis contacts the Purifiers via Phoenix and asks them to join the Protoss. Kalorian declines as they don't want to be controlled by others. Artanis says he wants to make amends and explains that the Conclave is no more. Kalorian then talks with the others. They ask that Phoenix talks for them and join the Protoss because Artanis has to be right about everything. In cutscene 2, Amon has again possessed Rohanna. Artanis lists several of his triumphs over Amon, and Amon says that Artanis will die before leaving. Rohanna then explains that Amon's body is nearly complete and he's going to send the Golden Armada against them. However, this can be stopped by destroying Aya's spy matrix. Artanis praises Rohanna for her help and then asks her to sever herself from the Khala to unshackle herself from the past. She agrees because Artanis is the main character, therefore always right. Next, Artanis asks her if she saw anything else. She says that when the Protoss created the Khala, this awoke the Xel'naga, who attacked Amon at Xeris. The Zerg then killed all the Xel'naga that weren't on Ulnar, but Amon died during this battle. Then Narud tried to create a body for Amon using the hybrid. Karak says the Purifiers have a synthetic Khala. Artanis suspects that the Purifiers weren't considered Protoss because they weren't connected to the Khala. Finally, Phoenix decides that as he isn't Phoenix, he should choose a new name. Conclusion. While I can understand Blizzard's logic for creating a machine faction, since the Protoss use more autonomous machines than other factions, this mission also had some serious issues. The first issue is regarding the origins of the Purifiers. With the Colossi, Zeratul explains that they were created during the Protoss Civil War, the Aeon of Strife, and abandoned once the war ended. However, the Templar caste didn't exist until after this war ended, so they can't have been made for this reason. If we assume that there was an unspecified reason why the Protoss needed additional soldiers, which is why they converted some Templars into Purifiers, then the problem becomes, why did the Protoss mistreat the Purifiers? Rohanna claims they're only robots, yet immediately backtracks when Phoenix is brought up. It also seems unlikely that anyone who knew Kalorian or any of the other Templars would consider them simply robots, especially when they have cyborgs such as Dragoons and Immortals, which can be more machine than Protoss. Another reason proposed by Artanis is that they weren't connected to the Khala. While this seems more likely as the Conclave opposed the Dark Templar because they were disconnected from the psychic bond between Protoss and didn't follow the Khala, leading to them creating destructive psychic storms across Aya. However, being a Purifier would only mean they couldn't connect to the psychic bond. It wouldn't prevent them practicing the Khala. It seems that by trying to combine the psychic bond and Khala, the writers failed to understand why the Protoss opposed the Dark Templars. I'd say this issue is a mixture of bad writing and plot contrivance, as the writers wanted a machine faction, couldn't come up with a good reason why no one had mentioned it before. So they created a faction that was oppressed by the Conclave for unclear reasons, who Artanis would help by being very nice to them. The second one is, how did creating the Khala awaken the Xel'naga? The psychic bond between Protoss existed before Amon, while the Khala was how the Protoss society was run and was created to end a civil war. I think the writers are trying to retcon the psychic bond as being created by Amon, and are claiming that by creating this psychic bond they awoke the Xel'naga. However, this is another example of bad writing. The third one is, why don't the Protoss use the artificial Khala that the Purifiers use? This would allow them to partially recover their psychic bond in a way that Amon can't use against them. I suspect the writers didn't consider this further because they don't want the Protoss to have the Khala anymore, which is why Artanis told Rohanna to unshackle herself from the past. The fourth is, why did Amon kill the Protoss rather than mind control them? Since he can mind control Rohanna here, and the Golden Armada in the Kapuru sector, it's clear that they're within range. The most likely reason is that if Amon mind controlled the Protoss, they'd immediately disconnect the locks and fly Cybros into the sun. So the writers decided to claim that Amon killed them with the Zerg for no reason. Another example of plot contrivance. The fifth is, why did Rohanna claim Narud was using the hybrid to build a new body for Amon, when in Heart of the Swarm they were used to collect Kerrigan's psychic energy to resurrect Amon? Because the writers either forgot what they wrote, or keep having to retcon their previous titles, because they had no idea where the plot was going to go. Finally, why doesn't Clarion ask what happened to the Conclave, the body that ruled Protoss society? Most likely, the writers didn't want to explain what happened to it. Regarding mission issues, In Unsealing the Past, why haven't the Zerg simply destroyed the locks? I'm guessing Amon left them on this moon after they killed all the Protoss to gain access to Cybros, but they don't seem to be doing anything to gain access to it. This is yet another plot contrivance so these missions can occur. Regarding purification, while I guess the hybrids could be preventing the Zerg from attacking the null circuits, the Purifiers need a reason why they didn't try to destroy them to bring their full force online. I suspect the writers didn't want the Purifiers to help the player this way, but without a reason why the Purifiers don't help the player, this mission comes off as contrived. In terms of characterization, Phoenix gains character development by finding a new purpose as a representative of the Purifiers and deciding to follow his own path. By contrast, Rohanna again only exists to be condemned by Artanis for not having his view on everything. Though she was able to provide some insights on Amon's origins, as she's no longer connected to the Khala, she can no longer fulfill that role, and becomes little more than a straw man to voice any views the writers don't like. In conclusion, these missions only existed because everyone acted as stupidly as possible. The Conclave mistreated the Purifiers so this mission could exist. Amon didn't mind control the Protoss because then he'd be able to access Cybros. The Zerg didn't destroy the stasis locks because then they'd be able to access Cybros. And the Purifiers didn't destroy the null circuits because then the mission would be over. As it stands, these missions are contrived and would need to be rewritten in order to make any sense.